Year 1, farmer Jodi Robuck transplanted 5 varieties into a 50-foot bed. He harvested one bunch, maybe $3. 12 months later, the same bed produces over $850. Not luck, not magic seeds. He treated every failure as data and systematically fixed one variable at a time until beets became one of his most profitable crops. I've interviewed Jodi dozens of times over the years. He farms on less than a quarter of an acre in New Zealand. His farm is amazing. It's one of the most methodical, well-run market farms I've ever seen. And today I'm breaking down exactly how he 3x'd his beet revenue and the framework you can apply it to any underperforming crop. I'm Diego, D-I-E-G-O. This is Modern Grower, where we talk about building a profitable farm business, not just a farm. Let's get into it. First, the baseline. After a disastrous year 1, Jodi switched to paperpot transplanting and finally addressed the boron deficiency that he had in his soils at the time. His beets started growing, but the numbers still weren't there. At the time, his setup looked like this: 3 rows of beets per 30-inch bed, 4-inch paper chains, multi-germ seeds, a very standard approach. The result, 55 pounds of beets per bed at $4.50 per pound. That's $250 in revenue per bed. Not terrible, but not enough. Jodi's benchmark is $400 minimum per bed. Every harvest year-round.
We were harvesting $250 off a 50-foot bed, which didn't cut it. We need to harvest $400 regularly off every crop, every harvest year-round, and that's conservative.
If most farmers got this result, they would say, beets don't pencil out. Move on, new crop. Instead, Jodi asked, which variable can I change? The obvious solution: more rows per bed. Go from 3 to 5 rows. Simple math. 67% more plants, 67% more yield, right? But his equipment, his transplanter, wouldn't cooperate. At the time, he was using the TerraTech version of the paperpot transplanter, and the furrow closing mechanism on that tool threw too much soil sideways. At 3 rows, there was enough space to make it work, but at 5, the middle rows just got buried.
We were really struggling with the TerraTech model. We could only get 3 rows on our bed, and the furrow would spread the soil so much that if we tried to do more than 3 rows, we would just bury the next row.
Jodi tried adjusting the tool, but no luck. The geometry was wrong for tight spacing. So he switched transplanters entirely to the Japanese version of the paperpot transplanter that has a different furrow closing mechanism. He bent it to sit deeper in the soil, and that prevented all the soil from spraying out to the side.
Then we switched to the Japanese, the original paperpot transplanter, and got to know that, and we were getting 4 rows in. We were really struggling with the closing of the furrow. Underneath the chute on the paperpot model is a little steel flap that sticks down, and you suggested to bend that deeper to affect the closing of the furrow, and that was a game changer.
These types of adjustments are often what separates hobbyists from professionals. Jodi didn't accept his tool's limitations. He modified the tool or replaced it to match his system. Going from 3 to 5 rows is a 67% increase in plant population. If yield scales proportionately, that $250 in potential revenue becomes $415, above Jodi's $400 threshold for a single bed. If your equipment limits what's possible, ask, can I modify it or can I change it out? Sometimes a swap will unlock a lot of money and untapped revenue. Your tools should serve your system. If they don't, change your tools, not your ambitions. 5 rows Worked, but it also created a new problem. Round beet varieties grow outward. At tight spacing, they compete for the horizontal soil space and they stayed small. Jodi's solution was to switch to an elongated variety, one that grows down instead of out.
We've got an elongated one that we love. It just grows like a sausage vertically out the ground, and we've found we can really crank up the density with that one. It doesn't spread, it just goes upright. Social Kitchen Restaurant actually asked us to grow the elongated one, especially if they're slicing it.
Think about this. Most farmers choose varieties based on flavor or disease resistance. Jodi chose based on geometry. The elongated beets grow vertically in tight rows without competing. Same bed, same space, larger individual beets. Round beets at tight spacing stay small. Elongated beets at the same spacing often do really well because they grow vertically, not horizontally. That's potentially 40 to 50% more weight per beet with zero additional bed space. For any crop you're densifying, if that's a word, ask, does this variety's growth habit match my system spacing? Sometimes the best variety is the worst fit for your growing system. Variety selection isn't about the seed catalog's top pick, it's about fit. Let's stack the changes: mechanical transplanting, tighter spacing, and a different variety. One bunch to over $850, 12 months of iteration.
And 6 mil plate, multiple seeds, 10 centimeter, 4-inch chain, and we're harvesting 85 kilograms off a bed, which is 850 turnover. It's quite a little bit more paper chain. Our less work at transplanting because the furrows were closing beautifully.
No new land, no new markets, no price increases, just methodical optimization, equipment change, equipment modification, row count, and variety selection. But during this experimentation, Jodi learned what also doesn't work. He tried pushing density even further. Why not? Switching to an 8 millimeter drop seeder plate to put more seeds down per cell, and he planted late, trying to squeeze in one more fall succession. The crop failed. Too dense, planted too late in the year, the beets couldn't size up before winter.
At the end of this first trial year, we were like running out of time to plant the last beets to get them established for winter, and we switched to the 8 millimeter plate, and we just cranked it up, and we planted them out too late, and we got nothing off those yields. They were too dense, too late.
Conventional wisdom says more is better. More seeds, more plantings, more successions. But often there's a ceiling. There's an optimal density, beyond which there's diminishing returns. There's often a hard cutoff day that season extension can't overcome. Jodi now knows in his system, a 6 millimeter drop seeder plate, 4-inch spacing, early to mid fall planting, not because someone told him, but because he tested and failed. That failure defined his boundaries. It was incredibly valuable and worth more than a dozen successful harvests. Here's the framework you can steal for any underperforming crop: the 5-variable diagnostic. 1, row count. Can I fit in more rows per bed? 2, equipment. Is my equipment limiting what's possible? Can I modify or replace it if it is? 3, variety. Does this variety's growth habit match my system? 4, timing. Do I know my hard start and stop dates? 5, density per cell. Am I at the optimal seeding rate? Not too sparse, not too dense. Most farmers troubleshoot by feel. That crop didn't do well, I'll try something different. Jodi troubleshot by the variables. Isolate one, test it, measure the result, move to the next. If you improve each variable by just 20%, the compound effect is 2.5 times. You've more than doubled the output from 5 modest operations. Pick your worst performing crop, run it through the 5-variable diagnostic, change one variable next time, and measure the result. Don't forget to observe and note the results. Underperforming crops aren't failures. They're experiments you haven't optimized yet. The only real failure is giving up before you've tested all 5 variables. Here's why I wanted to break this down. Most farming content shows highlight reels. Here's my $850 beet bed. What you don't see are the 12 months of iteration, the buried rows, the late plantings, the till-it-ins, the equipment swaps that went into creating that $850 bed. Jodi didn't stumble onto success, he engineered it. One variable at a time, one season at a time, he measured everything. After over 200 interviews, I've noticed that the farmers who treat crop failures as personal failures stay stuck. Farmers who treat crop failures as learning experiences keep compounding their results. They often take those and improve. The gap between a $3 harvest and an $850 harvest isn't luck, it's methodology. So here's my question. What's your beet crop? The one that underperforms every year that you've almost given up on? Drop it in the comments below. Tell me which of the 5 variables you think is holding you back. Now go build a farm business, not just a farm. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and until next time, be nice, be thankful, and do the work.